Okay. All right. So this is the second part of the subtle art of not giving a flamingo. It's a college transition series, and we're talking about the mental and emotional journey of college. This week, we're talking about how we're going to put some of the concepts that we talked about last week into action. So last week we talked about how we measure ourselves, the different feedback loops that we have around us that kind of help us create our expectations for really any transition in life, but especially college. So what are our expectations? What does this look like? And how can we prepare ourselves? So it is definitely a mental and emotional transition when you go to college. So thinking of these things is super important. And the best thing that we can do to prepare is look at our schedules and how our schedules are going to be affected by this transition so that we can be as successful as possible. Looks like we have Ella joining us now. Great. Welcome. Thanks for joining. So this week, we're going to talk about where do we spend our time in college and how is that different than high school, right? And this is a little bit different with the pandemic, of course, but for the large amount, like we talked about last week, being independent and autonomy is going to be huge in college. So how can we prepare? So just a few things to look at, different factors that are going to change. So for one, time spent in class. In high school, you're in class about 40 hours a week. You're a full-time student in the literal sense. And in college, it's about 12 to 16 hours actually in class. So that's a pretty big difference. That's less than half. So think right off the bat, you're going to spend a lot less time actually in class or in lectures, as we call it at the college level. In high school, you're doing about 7 to 15 hours of homework and studying, some of you more, of course, but this is just a range. And that's in addition to your 40 hours of class, right? In college, you'll see that this number goes way up. You're doing 24 to 36 hours of studying for 12 to 16 hours in class. So as you can see right there, so much of what you're doing as far as your learning is outside of the classroom, okay? And it's something that you kind of have to manage on your own time. Extracurriculars in high school, 6 to 20 hours. For those in sports, it may be a little higher. But in college, you're probably going to do about 5 to 10 hours of extracurriculars. You may meet once a week for a club or something like that. Again, there's certain, exceptions to these things. If you're in music, if you're in, athletics, sometimes those take up even more time. But, just to kind of show you. There's another layer, of course, work. A lot of you work while you're in high school, sometimes 10 to 15 hours a week or more. In college, you may decide that you want to work 20 hours a week or 25 hours a week because you're in class less, so you have some time. And then other things that you kind of have to consider that could be variable depending on who you are and what your kind of goals are. You will have to work in time for professional development. So when are you going to practice interviewing? When are you going to network? When are you going to search for that internship? When are you going to plan the study abroad trip you're hoping to go on? So that's going to be something you have to consider and make time for in college. You may have done a little bit of that. I guess applying to colleges could be considered professional development or career development. So that's something that you've had to work in and make time for in high school. So there's just going to be a lot more of that at the college level. As far as social time, of course, you're always going to have to make sure that there's time to socialize and be with your family and friends. Super important. So how much time are you going to have to do that in college, right? Amongst other things. Super important, though, that you're making lots of friends and having a lot of fun as well. And then, of course, hobbies. Again, as we talked about last week, all of these things are important. Measuring, making sure that you have time for your relationships, for the things you care about most, for your values, for religious practices, whatever it is that you care about and want to make time for, you're going to have to fit that into a college schedule, which I have full faith that you guys can do because high school is no joke. Again, I said it last week, I would not switch places with you guys. It is definitely, you guys have plenty of stuff on your plate already. But just keep in mind that, in college, you're probably gonna have to juggle a lot more different new things. You may have new bills that pop up, managing your tuition, those kinds of things will come up and will, take some time. So some questions from part one, start thinking about, what these questions mean to you, because these are your kind of red flags and triggers when you kind of need to make some adjustments. So start thinking about, what are the flags for me when I know I'm overworked or I'm stressed? I know for me, I start to run late. I forget to pack a lunch. I get up late. I just can those are the things that I can tell I'm not organized and I may be a little overworked or stressed, or I need to do something different with my schedule. Think for yourself, what are some tactics to help me with balancing all the things I need to do? So do you need to get up a little earlier so that you can, make it to class on time? Do you need to structure things a little bit differently? Do you need to set some boundaries with people in your life so that you can, make the things a priority in your life a priority, right? How do you communicate about your mental and emotional state? So when you do need help, or you do need to set boundaries because you're studying, or because someone's social meter is way high for you and you just don't have time to fit it all in, or when you have relationships in your life where maybe there's people in your life, family members that didn't go to college, so maybe they don't always understand some of the stressors or things that you're dealing with. How do you communicate about your mental and emotional state when you are going through a rough time, and what you might need from your friends and family and people who support you, teachers, in order to be successful? How is it going to be best for you to set up and keep a schedule? This is different for everyone. Some of you, like me, maybe use your phone. I run off of my phone for my schedule. Some people are paper people and they have to have a paper schedule and a paper agenda. So how are you going to set up your schedule and then have reminders and those kinds of things in order to be successful as well? Maybe you need sticky notes on everything. I mean, everyone's system is different, but start thinking about these things this summer so you have some tactics that work for you going into the school year, okay? Again, ask yourself, what is a healthy outlet, and why is this, and what is it, why is it important to you, right? So do you need to work out? Do you need to make sure you get to the gym? Do you need to do artwork? Do you need to go to church? Like what are your healthy outlets other than just strict socializing that you need to work into your routine in order to be successful as well? And then of course, what do you do if schoolwork is overwhelming you? Who are your legitimate resources at the college? Which professors, what study groups? Are there people in your major that can support you? Are you going to go to this tutoring center? What are you going to do when your schoolwork's overwhelming you? Because obviously there's many priorities, but of course in college, especially when we're looking at this investment, school's got to be up there in the number one, number two priority bucket, right? So ask yourself some of these questions this summer and start to kind of ponder on this so that you know what works for you, and maybe play with a few. If you've never done a digital schedule and you want to try a schedule on your phone, start keeping your schedule on your phone, those kinds of things, and see what works for you so that you go into the school year kind of knowing what's going to work for you, or at least having some ideas. So as you manage your schedule, like I said, figure out if you're paper versus digital, figure out what reminder systems work for you. I highly recommend Google Calendar. We have Outlook at Elmhurst University, so all of our students use Outlook. That means OneDrive, which is basically the Google Drive to Outlook. And that's a really great space to set some calendar reminders. You can invite people to different, if you have a study group, you can, create study session in the library and put a location on there and invite other classmates, right? So all of those things are really great ways to stay organized as far as the digital space. Having a monthly calendar view always helps, because then you can kind of look ahead, and sometimes you don't realize that, when you're doing your syllabus, which is basically at the start of a class, you're going to get a packet or a few sheets of paper that basically gives you the whole semester of a class in one document. When a final is, what's expected of you, what the rules of the classroom are. And they give that to you once and they expect you to read it, the professors. So first thing you're going to do when you get your syllabi at the first few days of class, you're going to pull out your monthly calendar view and you're going to see, do you have 2 classes that have finals in the same week? Do you have 4 classes that have midterms in the same week? Do you have papers due on the same day? That monthly calendar view is really going to help you, because then you can see which ones are your busy weeks. So on your non-busy weeks, instead of saying, oh, this is an easy week, you're going to go, okay, I need to prepare because next week's crazy. Okay. So don't just go day by day, look forward and see what you have coming up. And I know you guys are used to doing these things and balancing these things, but it does get just a little hairier in college when you have even more responsibilities, new bills to keep up with, professional development, internships to plan, clubs that you're taking part in, right? Sticking to the same sleep schedule is super important. It's definitely going to keep you on track. It's really easy to get off sticking to the same sleep schedule. I struggle with it myself. It's just really tricky. Some nights you feel like staying up, and some days you get to sleep in. Of course, you're going to do that when you get the chance, but this really is a huge marker for success if you can stick to the same sleep schedule. And then, of course, setting reminders, as we've talked about, is really helpful as well. So again, thinking about your healthy outlets, a healthy outlet is just something that, really works for you to kind of reset and refocus and reprioritize. So again, that could be, for me, I love to paint. That could be taking your dog on a walk. Again, things that are not super strictly social. Of course, that's going to be a nice outlet as well. But what are things that you do to feed yourself and who you are, to kind of relax and step back and reprioritize in your head in a way that's healthy and productive, rather than being super high energy or really social? What are things that kind of reset you and allow you to kind of get back on track, or just take a little break? So what are healthy outlets for you? So think about that. This is definitely important because we do need to refuel, you guys. Burnout is a real thing, especially with COVID. COVID fatigue was definitely a real thing and still is a thing. And you definitely want to make sure that you're looking at the 4-year plan and knowing that it is 4 years. I mean, you're going to have times where there's just a lot going on. So you need to be able to manage, yourself before you get too overwhelmed, of course. So super important. Being aware, like we talked about last week, of numbing patterns versus healthy outlets. So healthy outlets can be very quickly confused with numbing patterns. Binge watching Netflix is not a healthy outlet. Watching whatever show's your favorite for 10 hours straight is going to be a nice little outlet, but it's not healthy if it's going in the excess, right? So you want to have, maybe take time to watch one show or 2 shows, and then you want to kind of switch gears and focus on the things that are important to reach your goals. So keeping in mind when things that are maybe perceived to be as healthy outlets kind of slip into numbing patterns or unhealthy behaviors. I know for me, like, I love, if I can get the place to myself on a Friday night, it's really easy to like snuggle up and watch like 4 or 5 movies and, order some pizza. And then the next day, I always feel like, oh, I'm not organized. I kind of don't feel well from eating pizza last night, and I didn't work out after work, right? So there's definitely things that we all do that feel really good and, help us kind of disconnect from the craziness of life, but being aware when that kind of goes too far, and those things can definitely kind of knock you off your path to success. So being aware of these things and what things you're susceptible to doing and what things are actually healthy and make you feel like you're on the right track. Again, some of these nice examples of healthy outlets, exercising, always going to be good for you. Generally, so many studies show that it clears your mind and refocuses you and makes you feel successful and re-energized. Journaling, artwork, playing music, spending time with a pet or an animal of some type. Cooking, I know, is a big one for me. And then, of course, the dangers are anything in excess or too much that can kind of, again, go into that numbing pattern category. Let's see. So indicators that your schedule needs balancing. Like I said, shared some of mine. If you don't have time to get from point A to point B, that right there, I think we all run late quite a bit, or forget to pack your lunch, if you're missing meals and you're skipping meals because you didn't pack your lunch. If you're not able to get at least 8 hours of sleep, something needs to change in your schedule. You need to be able to at least get 7-8 hours of sleep. If you feel rushed all the time or disorganized, like, oh, where's my homework? Where's this? Where did I put my backpack? Where did I put my keys? Like, it's time to step back and get organized. Look at your schedule so that you can have a little bit more time to prepare and not be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. That is where we get stressed and overwhelmed. I'm very prone to it. I know some of us are, and some of us are a little bit more relaxed. So not everyone struggles with these things, but be aware, maybe you have different things that you can kind of tell when you are out of balance. So keep those things in mind. Sometimes we are go, go, go all the time in college and focusing on many things. And we go a few weeks before we realize, like, oh man, I've been off track a little bit. I've been really stressed out, or I've been overwhelmed, or I've been disorganized. I've missed a homework assignment, those kinds of things. And unfortunately, in some classes, if you miss one homework assignment, that means that you're probably going to pull a C in the class, right? So there's not as much room for that in college, unfortunately. There are professors that I've known that will lock the door when the class starts. And it's like, if you're late to class, they just expect you to kind of go home. If it happens one or two times, they'll help you adjust and stuff. But there's a lot of professors who, value their time and don't really, respect the fact that you're running late. So that's kind of tricky. Sometimes it may be seemingly a little intense, but these are professional people in the professional world who, they expect you to show up for them just like you're showing up for them, or they're showing up for you, right? So keep those things in mind. And ultimately, you guys, we've talked a lot about financial aid. I know you guys you're putting a huge investment into this 4 years, right? So, there's definitely things that you need to take advantage of and be ready to hit right out the gate once you get to campus. Joining clubs and organizations, right? You'll know if you're not getting your return on investment if by the end of your first semester you haven't joined any clubs or organizations. If you're a commuter student and you're coming to campus just to go to class and then you're going home and your only friend is your car, you're probably spending not enough time on campus. You should stay on campus a little bit longer, join a club, study in the library, and join a study group, meet friends that way. So if you just go to class and then go home, you're never really going to be taking advantage to the full extent of what college life can offer you. And then, of course, leaning on numbing patterns. So much time goes by when you could be looking for a really kick-ass internship, or you could be, meeting people or building your network, or just having fun. There's a lot of really fun things you can do in college as well. So definitely, take full advantage so that you can get your return on investment after 4 years and feel really confident stepping into the workforce. So what are the, kind of risks of not taking care of your mental and emotional health? I mean, after we've talked about part 1 and part 2, what are the consequences? Of course, no one likes mental and emotional strain or stress or depression or anxiety. And some of these things are not avoidable entirely, but hopefully some of these tools we've talked about will kind of help you try to stay on track as much as possible and be aware of when you maybe need some tools. Sometimes you can struggle in school, right? If your mental and emotional health isn't quite in balance, or maybe even relationships. We all know we're not our best selves, right? If we are not taking care of our mental, emotional health. So be empowered by the things that you can control and know that there's going to always be ups and downs. You're going to just have a bad semester or a bad month, or one class is going to be extra hard. I mean, we know that that's just how life goes, unfortunately. So we can't avoid it entirely, but definitely be aware of these things in order to be as successful as possible. So that's kind of just some of the tools that we have. There are so many resources on campus, you guys. You will have a first year seminar, which will talk a lot about some of these concepts and connect you with different resources on campus for success. So the tutoring center, the career development center, the wellness center for counseling, and all sorts of other resources, different groups on campus. I mean, we program a lot of that for you. So I know you guys are going to start to kind of see all of this in motion as soon as you come to orientation and start, getting rolling with the process. But hopefully you learned some things today as we chatted, and I would love to turn it over to discussion or see if there's anything that I can help you guys with. I'm going to stop the recording here and we can kind of have some discussion.